Okay, this section, our next step is all about sleeves and putting in the sleeve into our shirts. The first thing that I want to point out is I've got our two classic shirt patterns out here, and I want to talk about the sleeve terminology, that this is the cap of the sleeve. Now, in the classic shirt, we put the shirt sleeve in flat, we call it, using a flat fell seam so that everything is all enclosed and there's no raw edges. Just like on your yoke was that way, and your collar, everything is all turned in, clean finish, no raw edges showing. And to do that in the classic shirt, it generally is what we call a flatter cap sleeve. But I have these switched in. I want to make sure you get the right ones, the right one. This one goes with this, and this one goes with this. So if I laid something across here we go. I laid this across here, and I've got them evened out here, but I put this up here towards the top of this. You can see that that cap is higher than this one. It's a sharper curve. This one is flatter. And the flatter that the cap is, the easier that the sleeve goes in flat, using a flat felt seam. So if you're sewing one of these two shirts, or another classic shirt pattern where it tells you to put the sleeve in flat, then you're going to notice that your sleeve pattern is not as high as if we put it in the round. And that's when we actually sew up the seam underneath here, the sleeves, underarm seam, and then it's in a cylinder, and we sew up the side seam of our shirt, and then we have two circles that we sew together. You can put those others, even if it's higher, on flat. It's just a little bit trickier because we don't put in ease strings and gather anything up when we actually have a very high cap sleeve. If your pattern is that, if you're sewing a shirt, primarily probably it would be a female gendered shirt, and your instructions tell you to put it in the round, then I do suggest that you do that. And what you would have to do then to get a clean finish on that sleeve is to go back to our information in your portfolio that actually shows you under when we learned about binding a seam. After you sew that sleeve seam in, instead of making it a flat fell seam, you would be just enclosing it with a little piece of bias tape. It can be self or it can be purchased bias tape, so that whole seam is not exposing any raw edges or raveling of threads. Now the other thing I want to tell you about in this sleeve is this pattern just had the one choice there. This pattern that has the three choices of fit in it. The A shirt is more of the classic, and I happen to be sewing the B, the modern fit, not the real slim fit, but the modern fit. And if you look at the instructions actually have, let's see if I can pull this up a little closer so you can see, two different sleeves. It's not working too well. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit for you so that you see the difference here. Okay. There. So if you were sewing this one, and you were doing the classic fit, this one, A, the sleeve for that is number 8. Do you see how that's a lot flatter than the B and C? You use pattern number 16, which this one is, and it's much higher. So depending on which style again you are doing, you will have 2 different sleeves in your envelope to choose from. The way that this pattern wants you to put them in, though, is the same. It is actually by doing it as a version of flat fell. You see how it's going in flat? And then we turn over that edge, just like a flat fell, and we tuck it in and we stitch it down. Now, the difference is, on some flat fell seams, you have the seam allowance on the outside of the shirt and you turn it under, or the jeans or whatever you're sewing. In this particular case, we are going to sew it to the inside and fold everything inside and stitch it down, so that there's nothing really rough on the outside and no little edge. Now, it's okay if you want to put it to the outside, you can. Some work shirts will be that way, but for your finer cottons that we're using, I think you want to put it all inside. It will just lay a lot neater, because it can be quite a challenge to make it lay flat in some places, especially the higher that the cap is. So you want that kind of unevenness inside of your shirt, not on the outside. Okay, the last thing that I want to talk about is, if you are doing this, you can also use the mock flat fell seam. And that, if you go back into your portfolio so that you can review that, that is where we sew the seam, and then we come back and we trim it down using the serger, and then you press that to the one side, and then you top stitch over that. So there isn't a folded over edge inside, but it is okay if you want to serge the edges and then do your top stitching or your edge stitching to hold it down like a true flat fell seam. Okay, let's start now by looking at pinning these both in. So I'm going to get that prepared and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back here, and I have got this one in front of me right now. The first one I'm going to pin in and show you the differences. We're going to do probably the more challenging of the two right away. And again, I'm doing this B. It'd be the same for B or C, the sleeve. It will be put in the same way as on A, but the sleeve for this one is that one that has that higher cap. So we're gonna tackle that first. And you can see right away, you see this, and here is the curve. So it's the sleeve curve. So we are pinning in a juxtaposition of a curve, right? One is going out, the other one's going in. This is the right side of my garment. There's my little back thing, right? There's my pocket. So this is the outside of the public side. And this is the public side, or the outside of my sleeve. There's my little pocket. And then my double notch is right over here, my little double clip. And there's my little double clip there. So we know we've got the right sleeve to put it in here. Okay. So we're going to start by matching up our match points. So that means over here, right there, stitch line matching. And then I'm going to go around and put one in at each of my match points. There's going to be the double notch there. There's a dot here, and I've made a little single clip where that one is, right there. So that one's going to go to that. This is my center top, which is to that dot right there. And then over in here, there's a single notch right there. It goes to this one, right there, and then my end. So I'm going to pin those specific places, and then I'll show you. I'll meet you right back.